Welcome back. This is Ed Morrissey filling in for Hugh Hewitt in the ReliefFactor.com studio, Texas's wing of the ReliefFactor.com studio. And joining me now is Luke Rosiak of the Daily Wire, who broke a story this week at the Daily Wire. Fine conservative establishment there that Ben Shapiro helms. And this is a extremely infuriating story of how I guess the education establishment and even the Department of Justice rushed to demonize a Loudoun County father who, as it turns out, was only trying to raise the issue of student safety because his daughter had been sexually assaulted by a male student wearing a dress in a school bathroom, a point that school officials and school board officials openly lied about. Luke Rosiak is the reporter who uncovered this in a massive expose this week. Luke, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you.
I mean, I'm sure that most of our audience has heard about this. This has gotten a lot of attention now, thanks to your reporting. But maybe you can go ahead and bring us back to the beginning. First off, how did you get access to all of the people who are in this, and just give us a brief rundown of the story as it stands?
Well, so this is a guy that people are familiar with his face because he was blasted all over the news for 3 months. He's a guy that's kind of a fat guy with his belly hanging out because the police are dragging him and his pants are falling down and he's got a bloody nose. He was being arrested at a school board meeting and had all these cops jump on top of him. And the National School Board Association put out that letter calling parents like him potential domestic terrorists. A lot of people thought they knew this guy. He must have been a bigot because he was arrested at a meeting where they were addressing transgender policy. Well, just 3 weeks prior, this guy's daughter was allegedly sexually assaulted in a bathroom. The police were called. Charges were ultimately filed. And the alleged rapist was prosecuted. This was a legit case. There's something really bad that happened to this guy's family. That's why he was there that day. So he showed up, and basically the superintendent said at that meeting, "Our records show we've never had any bathroom assaults, so I don't know why everyone is against this policy," basically implying that everyone in that meeting were bigots. So that's when this guy got really mad. And there's a verbal dispute, and the cops kind of try to intervene, and before he knows it, he's got, all the cops on top of him. And so the school board, basically, Mr. Smith, Scott Smith is the name of the dad, and, he wound up getting prosecuted for that minor charge of disorderly conduct, and they had tried to put him in jail. Meanwhile, the kid who did this to his daughter, allegedly, went on to do the same thing again. He was arrested just last week for allegedly assaulting a second child.
Right. I mean, this is, in part, I actually think that this is a huge part of the story, Luke, because the issue here is that the school initially really wanted to tamp this down, and for some reason, and I suspect I know why, the local law enforcement wanted to tamp this down too. So people weren't made aware of the fact that this was a risk, and they weren't made aware. And Scott Smith wasn't even made aware of the fact that the perpetrator in his daughter's sexual assault had been allowed to get out of the house. He was supposed to be in house detention, right?
Yeah, the prosecutors told him they were taking it seriously and all that stuff. And to be fair, they were prosecuting him.
Right.
But what the school system did in particular was deeply disturbing. Even after that, I was asking the school system for a while before I, wrote this story. Will you confirm this? Will you acknowledge this? I've got all this evidence. And they still wouldn't say so. But now in the, 20, I guess about 72 hours now since my story came out, as you said, it's kind of been picked up by everyone, and now some of the officials have confirmed to other news outlets, basically corroborating the main elements of the story and trying to get out ahead of it because now everyone's furious, and now they're trying to act like, oh, yeah, no, we knew about it, we didn't cover it up. but there's serious problems remaining to this day with what they're claiming, and they're claiming, oh, well, we did from the beginning, report this. And I mean, there's an email
saw that
from
statement.
the school principal in my story where he says, students and parents, you may have seen police at school today. I didn't want you to worry. The police were just there because of an incident in the main office that didn't threaten any student safety. Well, that corresponds to what Scott Smith said, which is the reason the cops showed up that day is because they called the cops on me because I was mad that they weren't taking this seriously. So the school system, I mean, it's putting out these statements, and if you look at them carefully enough, they're wordsmithing, they're these mealy-mouthed statements. Scott Smith says that when the actual alleged rape occurred, they were kind of treating it as a relatively minor, non-urgent matter, and the only reason, they really drove him to the hospital and did a rape kit that day, which ultimately, helped build the case, was because he showed up and made a scene, and they, in an email, the principal's basically saying, yeah, we had an incident today. A father was making a scene in the office. And so, they did call the police on him. And, if you've seen the video, yeah, he was mad that day, that separate day, June 22nd, 3 weeks later at the school board meeting. So, yeah, this is a father that's mad. This is a father that has strong opinions about what's going on in schools. But, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of parents would have handled this, been more angry than he was. He was, in some ways, kind of restrained.
Yeah, and I saw the statement that the Loudoun County Public School Board put out yesterday, right, which was that the only thing that they really condemned in this was the fact that Scott Smith spoke without registering as a speaker at the school board, which I would guarantee you 90% of parents who would show up to a school board meeting probably wouldn't realize is a requirement in the first place. And in the second place, why would it be a requirement? Why would you need to register to speak at a public meeting? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me either.
Well, I don't know where that came from. I mean, my story didn't say he was signed up to speak at that meeting. Although, after he was arrested at that meeting, they gave him a no trespassing order just days before the follow-up meeting where the vote was actually taken.
Right.
And so he had no option to sign up at the meeting where they actually, passed that transgender policy. So, the fact is this is now two girls who have been harmed, and
by the same person.
By the same person. And I mean, the school system, it's like, can you even trust these people? I mean, we're trusting our kids to these people. And there was a lot of secrecy and a lot of dishonesty here. And there's a huge sense that the people who are running our schools are more interested in politics and self-preservation than they are in education and in our children.
Well, Luke, and again, we're speaking with Luke Rosiak of the Daily Wire, at Luke Rosiak. That's Rosiak. I'm pronouncing that correctly, right, Luke?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. So be sure to follow him on Twitter. And it's not even the fact that it's politics. It's the version of politics. I mean, it was just 3 years ago that we're all being lectured that you have to believe all women when they report sexual assaults, regardless of how long it takes and how much of the details they recall. When Scott Smith got up, and this is on something that had just happened recently, where there's evidence, there's plenty of evidence of the sexual assault, and it's been reported to the police. He got up and said this, and what was the response from the activists at the meeting? We don't believe you. We think you're lying. We think your daughter's lying, and that's one of the reasons why he got as angry as he did. I'm amazed that there aren't more people pointing out the hypocrisy of this. And the fact that people are basically writing off the security of both young girls and young boys in these and the dignity of being able to have at least some modicum of privacy in bathroom assignments, because they're more invested in the trans movement than they are in dealing with actual rape, which I mean was stunning to me after the entire Brett Kavanaugh thing.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, I think the way that this happened is because some people who are hard left activists have dehumanized people who, disagree with them even just a little bit, they will say you're a bigot and you're filled with, quote, hate. I mean, that's a cartoonish way to view your neighbors.
Right.
The fact is, probably almost no one at that meeting, if not no one, who opposed the trans policy was filled with hate. They had differing opinions for reasons that, are their own. And Scott Smith, the one case that we've gone into deeply, he had a very specific reason. But, he was trying to, someone asked me, why didn't he come forward sooner? Like, he was trying. I mean, on that video where he's arrested, his wife, you can hear his wife scream out, "My daughter was raped and this is what happened." People weren't listening to him. The school board wasn't listening to him. He was put in jail.
Right.
I mean, this guy he just felt unheard. And, basically the school board passed this policy. But now the prosecutor, Buddha Bibberage, she tried to put him in jail. She now, acknowledged to the Washington Post, that my story is right, that it was the same kid that was charged in two separate incidents, just a couple months apart. The Washington Post interviewed her, but it didn't ask her,
Luke,
why did you prosecute the father? Why did you prosecute the father of the victim and seek jail time? Luke,
can we hold you over for one more? Morrissey of HotAir.com, coming to you live from the Texas wing of the ReliefFactor.com studios, talking with Luke Rosiak of the Daily Wire, and we've been talking about this Loudoun County Public Schools Board cover-up of two rapes, really, in their schools. We don't know if there's more because they're not being very forthcoming about this. And we've only got a couple minutes left, Luke, and I want to pick up on something you talked about. The media doesn't seem to be terribly curious about this either, with the Daily Wire and now some conservative publications being the exception here. It's good to hear that the Washington Post has kind of dipped its toes into this story. But even after you had this excellent report, very in-depth report at the Daily Wire, how many media organizations reached out to you to get more information and to do their own reporting on this?
Well, I don't care if they reach out to me, but, the public deserves to know about this, and they should be, building off of my story and bringing it to the readers probably, because parents need to make sure their kids are safe. And a lot of people here Virginia is in the middle of a governor's election that's, polling in a dead heat, and, voting is open right now. They got early voting going on. And so, people have been saying, I saw someone sent me some crazy people online saying that the right-wing media is just using this case to stir it up and make sure that Glenn Youngkin wins instead of
seizing, pouncing.
Yes, they're seizing and pouncing. Yeah.
What do you mean? I mean, I learned that two children had been raped. I shouldn't have said anything. I mean, I'm not using it for anything. I'm doing what any sane journalist would do, and what any sane school system should have done. Is when two children are raped, you say something. And The fact is, if there was anyone, and there's actually quite a few groups who are not saying anything about this, it's them who feel like that would harm the chances of Terry McAuliffe for governor, who says parents shouldn't play a role in kids' education.
Right.
And so, I mean, this was clearly concealed. They had many opportunities to tell people that this happened, and they said nothing. And now they're kind of in damage control mode. But the fact is, as recently as last week, none of the officials would confirm this to me. I had to prove it myself, and now they're all pretending that they weren't covering it up. But there's, children were raped, and people were thinking about politics more. And so people are going to have to get over their really, really strong opinions about Republicans are evil and everything is about politics, because it's causing bad things to happen, including to our children.
Luke, it's not just that they weren't reporting it, though. It's that they were reporting something entirely different. They were reporting Scott Smith as being some sort of domestic terrorist, to the point where the Department of Justice started to weigh in. You had the National Association of School Boards, NASB, requesting Department of Justice protection for these school board meetings. You had Merrick Garland get up there and talk about how this is a new form of domestic terrorism. I mean, it's not that they weren't talking about this, it's that they were lying about it, and the media didn't even bother to question that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, they all thought they knew why someone would be angry at a school board. It's because they're Republican. The Republicans are bigots. Republicans are evil. But what's happening in Virginia now is a movement that goes beyond partisanship. It's people are waking up to we've got real problems here in these schools, and we've just got to be pragmatic and focus on education for our kids and the reading, basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, because what's going on in the schools now, they think of nothing but politics. And, I mean, these are the same schools that weren't even open for a year because of, teachers' union pressure, and that put extreme psychological harm on our children. And so education, they're angry that the parents are showing up at school board meetings. And, Scott Smith is not a bad example of why they're showing up, because these are our communities. We have a right to be involved in policy, and the people honestly have been charged for a long time, have not been doing a very good job, and have not been very honest with us about a lot of things.
Luke, I mean, we've got about a minute left here. What's coming up next at the Daily Wire on this story? Are there more developments that will be forthcoming in the next couple of days at the Daily Wire? And
I believe I'm going to have a good story up today following up. I've been so busy, talking to media and everything. It's been wild how much attention this has gotten. I've finally written a new story. I hope to get it up today. That is going to raise more serious concerns, as Loudon is now making these claims that in many ways don't hold up. So even now, I mean, we've got to be questioning these people's honesty. And the problem is, this is what they've admitted to under duress. How much else has happened that they haven't told us about? We've got to stay involved, because these are our kids on the line, and it's too important to let these people keep going the way they've been going.
Well, Luke Rosiak, Daily Wire, thedailywire.org, I believe. Is it dailywire.org?
It's dailywire.com.
Dailywire.com. Dailywire.com. Be sure to check that out. That is behind a paywall. This is one of those instances where it's worth it to get the subscription. Luke Rosiak, at Luke Rosiak on Twitter. You can follow him there. Thank you so much for being with us. A very important story. So be sure to follow up everybody else and press your own news organizations, as local news organizations, as why they're not following up on this story. I'm Ed Morrissey of Hot